Let's be honest for a second. What's one of the hardest obstacles we have to deal with? For a lot of us, it's other people. So today we're going to dive into some ancient Stoic wisdom to figure out how to stay grounded even when someone else's behavior just feels completely out of control.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking at where provocation really comes from and dig into the biology behind panic. Then we'll learn a super powerful mental trick to shift our perspective, get really clear on what compassion is and isn't, and then I'll give you 3 practical Stoic tools you can use right away. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with a simple practice you can start this week.
All right, let's kick things off with a pretty radical idea. It's something the Stoic philosopher Epictetus wrote that, honestly, it completely stopped me in my tracks the first time I read it.
Okay, hold on. Before you think I'm crazy, I know how that sounds. It's so easy to read this as blame, right? Like it's all your fault. But that is not what Epictetus is saying at all. The real key here is about where your power actually lies.
See, what he means is that the pain we feel doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from the story our nervous system tells about it. You can think of this reactive part of us as our child brain. It's the part that immediately connects what's happening to our deepest sense of worth and safety. And that story, well, that's where we can start to take our power back.
Now let's switch gears a little bit, from the philosophical to the biological. Let's actually look at what's happening inside someone's brain when they're being cruel or controlling, or just explosive.
You know, biologically speaking, their rational, thinking adult brain has pretty much gone offline. It's just not available. Their survival-focused child brain has completely grabbed the steering wheel. So what you're really dealing with isn't a rational adult. It's a terrified, unregulated child in an adult's body. And it's using the only tools it knows to feel safe: reacting, defending, and controlling.
And once you see that, it really does reframe everything. I mean, look at this. What looks like strength on the outside is almost always just fear on the inside. What looks like someone trying to control everything, that's actually panic. And that anger, that's usually just a signpost pointing to a much deeper wound. They aren't in their power, they're in their panic.
And this brings us to this idea of radical compassion. Now, I want to be crystal clear about this. This is not about forgiveness. It's not about tolerating harmful behavior. It is simply about understanding the wound behind their actions, so that their behavior loses its power to trigger you. It's a tool for your own regulation, not an excuse for theirs.
So, the big question is, how do we actually do that in a heated moment? Well, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius had this incredible mental exercise he used. He called it the view from above.
Whenever he felt overwhelmed by something, he would mentally just zoom out. He'd start by picturing the immediate argument, right? Then he'd pull his perspective way, way back, like he was looking down on it from above the city. And then he'd zoom out even further, seeing that tiny little moment against the vast backdrop of all of history. And you know what happens? From that incredible distance, the problem that felt so huge just moments before, it starts to shrink down to a much more manageable size.
And hey, here's an even simpler version you can try. The next time someone's behavior really starts to get to you, just for a split second, picture them as a small child. Not in a condescending way, but just to remember that the behavior you're seeing now, it was learned somewhere by someone small who was just trying to get through something really difficult with the only tools they had at the time.
This brings us to a super important point that the Stoics were really clear about. Understanding someone's pain is not the same thing as having to endure it. Let me say that again. Compassion is not compliance.
Epictetus put it perfectly. He said, "You are not obligated to attend every argument you are invited to." Just think about that for a second. An argument is an invitation, not a command. You always have the right to say no thank you.
So here's what this really boils down to. Your nervous system is not a public park. Not everyone just gets to wander in and set up a picnic. You can have genuine compassion for someone's pain, and at the exact same time, you can choose not to be in the room with them. Both of those things can be true. In fact, they should exist together.
Okay, so we've worked on shifting our mindset. Now let's get really practical. I'm going to give you 3 powerful Stoic tools you can start using today to protect your peace when you're dealing with difficult people.
First up is the weather tool. Marcus Aurelius once said that getting angry at a difficult person is like getting angry at the rain for being wet. I mean, the rain is just doing what rain does, right? It's not personal. In the same way, a person running on old fear and programming is just doing what that programming does. You don't take the rain personally, you just grab an umbrella.
The second tool is what I call the Stoic exit. And this is not weakness. It's not avoidance. It is a conscious, powerful choice to protect your nervous system from a conversation that's just going nowhere good. All you have to do is deliver one clean sentence, something like, "I am not going to continue this conversation right now," and then you physically leave. The real power is in the exit. And the third tool is something you practice over and over. It's called returning to your own lane. It is so easy to get pulled into other people's drama, isn't it? So the practice here is simple. You just notice when your attention has drifted over into their chaos, and then, without any judgment at all, you just gently guide yourself back to your own concerns, back to your own lane. All right, let's wrap all of this up and put this theory into action. I've got a really simple, really concrete practice for you to try out this week. Okay, step 1. Just identify one person whose behavior regularly gets under your skin. We all have one. Step 2. The very next time it happens, before you react, I want you to pause and use the weather tool. And step 3, silently in your own head, just say this sentence to yourself. That is their anxiety. That is not about me. And then, that's it. Just notice. Notice if that usual emotional spike feels even a little bit different when you reframe it like that.
And that really brings us to the core message of this whole explainer. Other people's chaos, their panic, their drama, it's all very real. It exists. It is just not your emergency to solve.
When it comes right down to it, your only job is to keep your own conductor, that's your calm, rational, adult brain, on the podium, leading your own internal orchestra. Let their chaos be noise in the background. You just focus on your own music. So what are you going to do this week to keep your conductor in charge?